We're live.
Shade right now is probably like 7 seconds. We're good?
Yeah, we're gonna make sure we have sound and everything.
We're on.
Yeah.
Okay. How you doing?
Good.
Awesome. We're joined by this is John Fort.
John, if you want to share it now.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, now you can share it. He's sharing this. Look, how much did we get on Shade? We got not even 4 seconds.
Yeah, it was about. You were close.
I was
to 8
closer.
seconds,
Yeah, I
actually.
said we're gonna have 8 seconds of sun.
There, done.
You did it?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, we retweeted that.
John is financially 1,000 times smarter than I am. We're just going to start it with that. Anyone that can even possibly work for any show where the first word of the show is squawk, I will say that you are in a realm that is so far off from where I am right here.
I'm at least more obnoxious than you.
You probably are.
Yes.
No, I sit in the can't really balance my checkbook group. You sit in the not only can I balance my checkbook, I can balance yours, the country's, and everyone else's live at the same time.
With the right software.
With the right software.
I probably could. Yeah.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is this a good time or not such a good time with a new administration for me? Because we all thought it wasn't going to be such a financially pleasant time, and all of a sudden, it's sort of been a great 48 hours.
It's too soon to say.
Come on, John. I was trying
really,
to say something smart.
I mean, hey, there's always this honeymoon period, right?
Okay.
Like everybody thinks that they know what's going to happen. You know, you see certain types of stocks, financial stocks. There's going to be less regulation. People think because clearly people were voting for shackles off the banks.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know.
Obviously.
Industrials, because you got to build stuff like walls, apparently.
Right.
So, you know,
Big
Caterpillar.
walls.
Yeah, Caterpillar.
Whether or not
stock
we pay
way
for
up.
them, but I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, they didn't necessarily do so well, but it's just a couple days. I mean, the stock market does things, and then people make up reasons why they think the market did those things, and then a few months down the line, maybe we know.
You work for CNBC.
I do.
Is it? I mean, when I think, and I worked at NBC for many years, but I think of CNBC as a bunch of people that are running around. That at any given moment I could be like, "Where's the Dow right now?" Or like, "How's Apple doing?" Or I mean, is that the world that it's in, or is it not that as intense as I'm making it out to be?
It's kind of right.
It is. I knew it.
I'm probably in some ways less nerdy than most of the CNBC people, but a little more geeky.
Okay, please
Right?
explain.
I covered tech for a long time, so that's the geek side.
Okay.
But not as much of a market nerd. I started off like actually in Silicon Valley, out in California, covering the companies themselves and the technology.
So as a reporter out there.
Yeah, as a reporter, not as concerned about where the stock was moving, but more about what the products were and kind of what the vision was.
When you were out there, what was the big product? What had just come out? What were you focused on?
I moved out there at the very end of 1999.
Okay,
So one of my first stories I covered was Steve Jobs saying, "I'm not just the interim CEO, I'm going to stay."
Wow.
Right? That was like the big moment because it wasn't clear he was going to stay.
Right.
So the iMac was brand new. There was no iTunes, no iPod yet. You know, I got to cover that stuff. And then as Apple grew up and became king of the world, you know, I followed them for the ride.
Was there a lot of, and be honest with me back then, was there a lot
I gotta be honest with you?
No, not really. It's just something I say, but please don't. Lie to me, John.
All right.
Was there a lot of sort of, who is this guy? Like, I know you're going to throw a lot of things at us, but there's no way all these things are going to be invented in our lifetime, or...
Steve Jobs, like the you know, I didn't appreciate at the time what a unique character Steve Jobs was. I was so busy trying not to get sucked into the reality distortion field that, you know, the times when we interacted, it would be right after a presentation, and he was like, "What do you think?" And I'm a reporter, right? So I'm not going to say, "Oh, Steve, it was awesome." I was like, "Well, you know, this part was good. I have questions about that." And he would get so pissed.
Really?
Yeah, that I didn't just go, "Oh, Steve, you're going to change my life." I mean, he was going to change our lives.
And he did.
But I couldn't say that.
Never to his face.
Yeah.
Never to his face. How long did you stay out there?
I was out there until about 3 years ago, so 14 years total.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've really seen the world change from almost the inside out when it comes to technology.
Yeah, it was a cool time to be out there for sure.
Very competitive as a reporter?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got out there as a cub reporter. I had done internships. I had worked for a newspaper.
Are you from out there?
I'm from out here.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you just went out there to work.
Just went out there. Just went west, young man.
Yes, horse greeley.
And, you know, I'd worked for a paper in Kentucky for about a year and a half after college and knew I wanted to cover tech. And so there was an opening at the San Jose Mercury News, the paper of Silicon Valley. So I went right before the dot-com bust and everything came crumbling down. Slipped in under the door like Indiana Jones.
Nice, nicely done. If he was really indie, there'd be like snakes, and there'd be like a little Chinese boy being like indie. But I don't know if
I'm not going to go there, but
yeah,
there were metaphorical snakes.
There were metaphorical snakes. For sure. Were you young to be out there at that time?
Let's see, what was I? 23-ish. So no, that's not young. That's middle age for Silicon Valley.
For Silicon Valley. Okay.
But yes, for a reporter, I was young, but not for a tech reporter. Not for a tech reporter. I mean, even now. I mean, now it's the age of blogs that we don't even really call blogs anymore. You know, young websites and technology sites that are covering stuff, and the reporters are still young.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're out there for 14 years. You got tired of it, or you had a thirst for finance, or tell me what brought you back here?
No, I didn't get tired of it. I worked for the Merck for a good 6 or so years, then for Business 2.0 and Fortune magazines, and then, you know, interspersed in all of that, CNBC would have me on as a guest whenever their regular reporter would get tired of being on all day, because they start early. And there was Apple News, and they said, oh, you know, this guy can string a sentence together on camera. They decided they wanted to add another reporter, and they asked me if I'd be interested. And so I ended up working at CNBC. Then after a couple of years, they said, we'd really like somebody at headquarters out east. We'd like you to move out east. And I was like, yeah, I'm not sure. We'd really like you to move out east. And eventually, it worked out.
Finance.
Yeah.
Is it still sort of woven into tech, or just all finance now?
It's a bit broader now. So I co-anchor the 11 o'clock hour Squawk Alley, which mainly focuses on technology, but it's just the news of the day. So whatever happens, of course, a lot of election stuff now, but if the market is taking a dump or if it's soaring, we cover that too, whatever the reason for it might be.
What did you study in college? I'm always curious when people are sort of playing in the world of finance and tech.
English writing.
Cool. Yeah, no, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
So you were
Liberal
really
arts
fully prepared.
school.
Liberal arts, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't like just writing about English.
No. I mean, if you were going to go so far from tech and finance, you were going to go all the way. Like, so far away from it.
Yeah.
So how did you know what to do? How did you know?
I never know what to do, John.
Oh my God, that's just like me.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, I love that interview question. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
I would never ask you that. What I will ask you
I
is,
never
how do you
answer
know the
it.
job?
Yeah. I'm curious.
Okay.
I like talking to smart people, and journalism's great because it allows you to do that in whatever area. And tech has been the story, and I happened to sort of stumble into it because I was curious about it, and I actually took a detour and was a senior web editor for the Merck for a while when blogs were taking off and podcasts. We did some of the first ones of those for that paper, and also a reporter on education for a while, just because.
Just why not? You felt like you weren't doing enough at the time.
I wanted to be an editor, and there was no opening in business. And they're like, well, go over to local for a while, and maybe there's something will open up. And I went over, and nothing did. And then eventually something did.
They lied to you, John.
You know how it is.
They lied to you. My friend Carl, you probably know. Do you know Carl Kinsey? Obviously, you know Carl.
He's a co-anchor on my show.
Okay, well there you go. So Carl also,
my friend Carl.
he didn't start off in finance. He was sort of on our side, news side, and they kind of brought him over there, and they said, learn this and do this. That's what they did with me with sports. I was a reporter, and they said, we need a sports reporter to sort of go over there and learn this and do this. And you actually become better at your job because now you're really sort of uber focused. You don't want to make a mistake. You want to know everything there is to know. You're reading multiple publications every single day. For me, it was the best thing that ever happened. I learned sports in a way that I wouldn't have. If I sort of grew up doing sports, I probably would have gotten lazier.
Yeah.
But I'm curious another tech question, if you will.
Sure.
I'm always curious about this because
Just don't ask me any sports questions.
I will never ask. I learned very early on, like 8 minutes ago, that you are not a sports guy.
I'm not.
And you and I go back 9 minutes, so you can know where that's going.
I know, yeah.
I'm curious back then, as you were being introduced to all these young toys that are now part of our mainstay, what did you think was going to stick and what did you think wasn't? Like, was there something that came up that you're like, this is never going to be a thing? I don't even know why we're covering it now. It's like the iPhone or...
Twitter.
Tell me.
I thought Twitter was ridiculous.
Why?
Because it 140 characters. Where are people even going to see this? It just seemed completely ridiculous, and I got that one. Then there was Yo. There was an app called Yo.
Okay.
Just a few years ago, where you would say Yo to somebody, and somebody would say Yo back. I thought that was stupid. That was stupid. So my batting average is generally good, but Twitter I was totally wrong on.
I thought that was stupid. That was stupid.
That was actually stupid, yes.
Twitter, you got wrong. Twitter came after, it was like MySpace, then Facebook, then Twitter, right?
Twitter was actually a little before Facebook.
Oh, it was.
As far as, I mean, it was kind of open to everybody. People were using it with SMS, like text messaging.
Yeah.
And anybody could get on, but nobody really cared for a long time. Facebook had sort of started at around the same time, but it was just for college students. So if you were going to be an early adopter and you weren't in college, you probably could have gotten on Twitter before Facebook.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought I was going to skip Twitter because I skipped MySpace, joined Facebook. I was going to skip Twitter and then join the next thing that came about. Like in my head somehow that was my social media plan.
So are you on Snapchat? Because that's the next thing.
No, I'm
I also
Snapchat.
thought Snapchat was not going to have a
I still don't think it's going to have logs. I think it's going away, mainly because I don't understand it. So things that I don't understand, like balancing your checkbook and a lot of the financial things, I think are just going away.
I think Snapchat
is here to stay.
Yeah, it's here to stay.
I don't understand. It's all temporary. Why do we want to live in a world that's like temporary?
It's not all temporary anymore. There's stuff on Snapchat that stays.
So why is it then? Wouldn't it be then Instagram?
They changed it on us.
Why do they do that thing?
They do it. I don't know why they do it. Because they're like us. They improvise. They say you're going this way, but then they end up figuring out maybe that's not the best way. So
they do this.
Yeah, course correct.
But I thought all the kids are using Snapchat.
The kids are.
Are you on Snapchat?
I'm semi on Snapchat. Like I signed up for an account. I never actually snapped anything, but I checked out other people's snaps. Then I deleted the
snaps. You're like using the lingo now.
Well, there's Snap Stories. There's a whole world.
I'm lost.
And like the younger reporters at CNBC do it, and CNBC does it. And I checked that out for a while. And then I deleted the app because I'm just like it's one more thing to look at.
Yeah.
I do LinkedIn. I do Twitter. I do Facebook. I do Periscope. Something. You know, I've got my things.
Right.
They're kind of the older tech guy things in a way. If I'm doing LinkedIn and not Snapchat, but at a certain point you just got to embrace it.
Look, if I wake up in the morning,
40 next month.
So you're still a child.
I'm still a child
to me. If I wake up in the morning and I start and I say I'm going to go through all my social media, I'm going to like read through my feed and all, it'll be like noon by the time I actually get out of bed and start. And I don't have the time, or frankly the energy, or the wherewithal to start something. I definitely have the energy.
You
Take that back. It's the wherewithal, which I don't even really know what that word means, to go through and do it right now. Tell me about Carl.
Carl's a great guy. I was just talking to Carl after the show. Carl's got a lot going on.
Tell me.
So, I mean, like me, he's a family man.
He's got the twins.
He's got the twins. He does 3 hours of live television in a row.
And doesn't complain.
I
don't even know.
Jenna does 4 hours.
And complains all the time. So basically we're like identical twins, me and Carl.
Not complaining is like doing another 2 hours inside because you can't get it out.
Wow.
But no, I mean,
Carl's amazing.
He's pretty amazing. He does 3 hours of live television. I just do 1 hour and then
with commercials, it's basically nothing. You're basically barely on TV.
Barely. And he quarterbacks the whole time, so he's got to know everything. So he studies. He's got the great guy.
But he's fun. Carl and I used to work at we did Weekend Today sometimes, and he was the kind of guy, that annoying. We're gonna pause for crime. Crime's gone.
It's brief crime.
Brief crime, just a little bit of crime, baby crime. You remember that kid in high school that was like, they walked in, they're like, oh my gosh, was today the test? Let me just quickly, okay, I'm good. And then they go in and they come out and they're like, it wasn't that bad. I got like a 97. And meanwhile, you started for like 15 straight days and you barely pulled out like an 86.
Yes.
That is Carl to me. Carl he could be unprepared. They could throw something at him and he'll be like, all right, no problem. We'll just take care of it and do it.
You need one of those guys on your team.
Always.
Yeah.
Do you have fun behind the scenes with him?
Yeah, I mean, not a ton of fun behind the scenes, honestly.
Yeah, because he's such a Debbie Downer, that
because
guy.
I'm in the last hour.
I can't stand Carl.
By the time he's done with me, he's going home.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
So, no, but it's always good to get to chat with him. It's the season now. We're in November. Oh my gosh, it's November. Mm-hmm. So we got the holiday parties coming up. That's when everybody hangs out.
All right, you talk about the season coming along. The political season just changed. We briefly touched on this.
Boy, did it change.
Boy, did it change. Well, boy, did it really change. Tell me how this affects, and you said we need to give it more time, but I thought you usually see an instantaneous response to a transition of power at the White House.
Yeah.
Especially when there's uncertainty?
You do see an instantaneous response, but it's not necessarily a long-term response, right?
Okay.
So, the market's kind of like a teenager that way. It has an instant emotional response to everything, but that's not necessarily how the market's going to feel tomorrow, next week, etc. So, you know, at first the market was like, oh, we really want Hillary Clinton to win because stability. And then Donald Trump, when it looks like Donald Trump's ahead, we're tanking. And then Donald Trump wins and the market spikes to all-time highs in the Dow. So it's like, market,
Right.
what's with you? You're so flighty, market. What's going on? Who knows? I mean,
What does the market tell you when you ask the market those kind of questions?
The market says
Market doesn't know anything. Market doesn't know anything.
Yeah, the market doesn't know. So, I mean, near term, maybe it's the fact that, you know, Donald Trump gave a victory speech that was pretty magnanimous. You know, maybe it was that he went to the White House and said nice things about President Obama, and they shook hands, and it's this whole peaceful transition of power thing.
Right.
And people thought he was going to storm through Manhattan and knock down buildings. So I don't know what people thought was going to happen.
I know.
And that's not happening. But, you know, that's just today. People are on vacation today. Volume is low, which means that people aren't trading a lot of stocks today anyway. So the moves
Because it's a holiday?
Yeah, because it's a holiday.
It's Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Does everything kind of slow down now since it's sort of getting close to the real holidays? I don't mean the real holidays, I mean like Christmas and whatnot.
No, I don't think things...
I really know nothing about the market, but I'm learning. So when you have an answer as emphatic as no, you really missed the boat on that question.
Well, I mean, we've got Thanksgiving, which is followed by Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and those are big because...
I'm skipping Cyber Monday the way I skipped Twitter. I'm just going to tell you that right
Jenna,
now.
you cannot skip Cyber Monday. There
Okay.
are deals out there to be had. Things you want to buy.
Okay.
I mean, you can't skip it.
Okay.
You don't have to buy anything, but you got to look.
I will look. I'm not going to skip it. I'm going to look.
They might have that thing.
That thing that I really, really want.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you want. What you really, really want.
Actually, what John really wants is, not John, but John from Cherry Hill was asking about any hot market segments for 2017 and any particular companies.
What's a hot market segment? Like just somewhere we should
something.
invest?
Yeah, some area. You know, what might be a hot market, and I'm not like a stock trader. We're not allowed to trade stocks, and I don't give. My job is not to give market commentary. I dig deep into technology. I try to stay informed on what's happening in markets in general. But we were talking a couple days ago, kind of post-Trump victory, to some experts, and my question was around volatility, which just basically means, you know, things going all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's probably a decent trade in volatility. You can actually trade that. There's an index called the VIX, which is just things are going crazy.
Yeah.
You can buy. I want to buy things are going crazy.
Yeah.
And if things go crazy, you make some money.
Like our show.
You might as well buy stock
Buy
in our
nuttiness.
show. Seriously.
It seems like that should be good all the time. But
All
actually,
the
the
time.
markets have been pretty calm overall lately. The VIX has been in this kind of 15, 16 range. If it gets up above 20, that's a big deal. So the reason why you might be interested in looking at volatility in 2017 is we don't know whether Paul Ryan is going to continue to be Speaker of the House. There are a lot of people who feel like Donald Trump's being nice to him now, but he didn't say the nicest things about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump didn't say the nicest things about him during the campaign. And if there's a change in leadership in Congress, there's a little uncertainty there. Plus, in Europe, you know, Italy is about to vote in about 3 weeks on changing the way the government is structured. There are major elections in France as well, and then there's the whole Brexit thing. You know, the UK actually has to go. They voted to do it. Now they have to actually do it, and there's a big question about what that's going to do to the economy, not just in Britain, but also in all of Europe. So you've got this change in government in the United States, changes in government in Europe. That's a lot of uncertainty. You need to raise the debt ceiling, and Republicans generally haven't wanted to do that, but now they've got the power, so do they do it? Is there an argument about it? We don't know. And we keep saying we don't know about stuff.
Right.
There's an opportunity for
VIX.
volatility. Yeah.
I'm investing in VIX.
The VIX. It's the VIX.
Excuse me. My
Like the
apologies.
Donald.
Yeah.
Like the Donald.
Or the blacks.
The Ohio State
Yes.
University.
Yeah.
Got it. Have you been to the floor of the stock exchange?
I do the show from there every weekend.
The craziness?
Like actually on the floor.
Right in the middle of all the insanity.
Post 9, which they used to trade stocks there. Now it's like a CNBC set right there.
With like the buyers and the sellers and the craziness, and they're throwing their pieces of paper up in the air and all of it.
It's not as crazy as it used to be.
What do you mean? I saw what was the movie I saw? Trading Places. No,
Yes.
Trading Places, right?
Trading Places, believe it or not, It was a few years ago.
No, I believe that. I believe that because I haven't been to a
Because
wedding
I
in
was
a long
20.
time. Because you were 20. It's not that
As
crazy.
Eddie Murphy. Yeah,
very
they all
good.
yeah, back when we used to laugh like that. Yeah, it's been a while. So there were more people then, but now the computers do the trading and they don't throw as much paper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean there are guys and a few women on the floor, but it's a much quieter affair after the market opens at 9:30, and then when it's closing at 4, it gets there's a little bustle, but it's not, unless there's an IPO going on or something like that. It's not crazy like it used to be.
Oh, that's too bad. I really had this great thing in my head that it was nuts, and that you practically got trampled every time you went to work, and it was a Christmas miracle if you got on the air because people were like shoving and pushing and trying to sell things.
Now we have a set right in the middle of the floor, so there's the upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think you're gonna stay on the East Coast for a while?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think I will.
Okay, that was a good answer to the question.
It's not completely up to me, but yeah.
Well, so
That's the
far
plan.
you seem like you're fitting in really well.
Thanks. Well, I grew up here, so I should. I don't have like that crazy California accent.
Right.
I can slip into my New York accent if I let myself go.
But why would you let yourself go?
Yeah, sometimes when family's around.
Or if someone meets you on the street in the middle of the night and you feel like
Exactly.
you need to
Then
act
you
the
can just
part.
go full.
Yeah, I do that
New York
sometimes. And they just laugh at me.
and then
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to ask you for any stock tips because I don't even know what that means if you gave me any, and
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
know any, and what does that
Actually,
even
can I
mean?
ask a question?
Even if I do,
Yeah.
I can't handle
So
that.
you mentioned the reality distortion field.
Yes.
And since you spoke to Jobs, it's actually like a major concept.
Yeah.
And since you spoke to the man and understand it, like I think it would be really great for the audience to kind of understand what reality.
Talk about the reality distortion field.
So what is that?
That's when Steve Jobs makes you believe something that ordinarily, if somebody else said, you'd be like, yeah, really? I don't know. That doesn't sound like that's really.
Yeah.
Like he'll say, I'm going to show you something that's magical. The crowd goes, show me, Steve. It's magical. Whereas ordinarily, if somebody else said, let me show you something that's magical, you'd be like, what? Magic isn't real.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Take that trench coat.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah. So Steve Jobs was good at this, partly because he had a bit of a track record of doing crazy things that worked out, and partly because he told, I think, a full story about the things he was presenting to you, and he set the lighting just right, and he spoke with real conviction about things. So he kind of took on this heroic personality that I think in your subconscious you sort of wanted to believe in. I mean, eventually, and he didn't always do this, but eventually he was wearing the black mock turtleneck and jeans. He even had a costume. Right?
Right.
I mean, that's some deep mind
game stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone in there felt the same way? You kind of bought into it, even if you couldn't act the part.
Well, I mean, you tried to set up your defenses against the reality distortion field. But in retrospect, I realized even setting up your defenses was dangerous because unless you have some other way for evaluating what he's saying, you end up missing stuff.
Right.
I mean, because sometimes the stuff was really revolutionary. It was the iPod, and he's saying it's magical. And it was magical.
Was it almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, like on some level? Or?
No, I don't think it was.
No.
I think the guy he had really deep convictions about certain ideas, like craftsmanship and artistry, that for a decade or more were out of favor in the technology industry. I mean, when Microsoft came out with Windows 3.1, it was like, well, here's the thing, and they're licensing it out to everybody who makes PCs, and it took over the market. And Steve Jobs was saying, well, no, if we make the software and we make the computer, it's going to be better, even though we're charging twice as much for it. People are like, come on, you're charging too much. Forget about it. But eventually,
They paid for it.
when devices got smaller, when we're carrying these around, you like for it to work in a certain way. You like for it to work together. And he was right. You know, the smartphones took over the world, and now Microsoft is making their own hardware too, and so is Google.
Right.
You know, these companies that were like, no, it's better to just focus on one thing and do that well, and have everybody else pay you to take a share of that. So,
Who else has that Steve Jobs reality distortion effect?
Elon
today?
Musk. Elon Musk. Now, what he doesn't have is the speaking ability of Steve Jobs. You hear Elon Musk talk, you kind of go, like, it's easy to take a step, because Elon Musk kind of talks like this. go to Mars? If you're gonna pick somewhere to die, you might as well pick Mars. Like, no, actually.
Yeah, I'm happy
Maybe,
here.
how about around my loved ones?
Right, yeah.
You know,
Oh, you didn't pick the cabana?
Yeah, right.
So there are some
My
cracks
first
in his distortion field, but he's got that same record of innovation, that same big dreaming, big person, hard luck story where he overcame. So when he takes the stage and he does, you know, he sets the lighting, he does that too, and he rolls out that Tesla, a lot of people believe. And you can look at his stock price and see, I mean, he hasn't made that many cars, but he's getting a really big valuation, big price on Tesla stock, what the company's worth, because people believe in it.
Right. And what do those two guys have in common?
I think they don't accept failure the way most of us do. Most of us, if you really believe in something and you try, and you get your back broken, you say, you know, metaphorically, you say, okay, my back's broken now. I gave it a really good try. All right. Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, you know, Steve got fired from Apple, basically, and then he went and bought a little studio from George Lucas that was doing special effects and turned it into Pixar. Just sold his Apple stock and did that. And then came back to Apple and brought it back from the brink of death. I mean, like, what motivates a person to do that? Like, you would think at a certain point, if you leave and you start something else, Pixar, then you start something else next that fails, you might say, well, okay, I got one really good thing going, why didn't I just run with that? But no, he kept trying to do really crazy stuff.
And were they perfectionists?
Did
they want things done as well as they could be done?
In one sense, yes. So there's this legendary Steve Jobs quote saying, and I'm going to paraphrase it, that you don't just care about, if you're making a dresser, you don't just pay attention to what the front of that dresser looks like. If you're really a craftsman, if you're really an artist, if you're making a great product, you make the back of it beautiful too, even though that's going to be against the wall. Because you know what that looks like. And you don't let yourself skimp on the things that people can't see, because if you start doing that, that's going to flow through the whole way you think about the things that you do.
You mean like skimping on the things that people can't hear? I'm just curious about. So like, for example, like you would, like if you were going to start something, you would probably say, you know what's important? The only two things in this medium would be visual and being able to hear, right? Like if you're starting a show, you would want both to be able to see it and hear it fantastically, and everything else can build its way around it.
So yes, but you also see Apple release these products that are not as good as they're going to get. So at a certain point, you decide this core idea of it is good enough, and it's a solid enough product in this way, and so we're going to ship it. And we're going to keep working on the next version, and then when these things are ready, we're going to ship that. So it's perfectionism, but only about the right set of things, or what you believe are the right set of things. You don't keep sort of spinning it and mulling over it, and it never gets out.
Gotcha.
So speed was one of their big issues, you think?
You know, it's
Speed to market.
you try to be as perfect as possible about the focused set of things, but that requires you to say, well, we're not going to do that, and we're not going to do that, and we're not going to do that, and we're going to do that later. So you got to make choices in the midst of being perfect at the things that matter. Now, sometimes they got the things that matter wrong, right? Products like the G4 Cube. It was a beautiful looking computer, looked like a futuristic tissue box, kind of turned upside down, with air flowing through it and whatnot. But it was too expensive, and you know, it kind of flopped. So they picked the wrong things to be perfect about in that product. But then there are things like the iPod, where they decided, well, maybe it won't have as much storage as some other MP3 players have, but it's going to be this size, and it's going to be this color, and people are going to feel this way about it, and you're going to go through the songs like this, and it's going to connect. And they picked the right things to be perfect about.
Gotcha. Awesome.
That's
You good?
yeah.
John,
Really interesting.
I'm fascinated. What just a great, colorful background you had, and such fantastic influences, and it brings you here, and clearly this is not your interview. Stop. go on and do big things, and then come back and tell us how like nobody even cares about finance anymore.
Could
and
be
how
a
you're,
piano falling. This
could
might be literally
this
my
could
last.
literally your last place. So you don't want to die on Mars. Maybe you will. You do want to die right
in this
here
cabana.
on the cabana.
Yeah.
John Ford, tell me where people can see.
Right, that's how we're going to get guests to come here. Come die in our
Come
cabana.
die in our cabana.
Come, everybody's looking
There
to
are
die
worse
in our
places
cabana.
to die.
There, you're right.
On a couch. No, I mean you can find me on Facebook.
Yep.
John Fort, JONFORTT.
2 T's.
2 T's, just to make sure.
Second T gets in
The
there.
second T is to make sure.
Yeah.
Likewise on Twitter,
Twitter.
John Fort.
2 T's.
At John Fort. Yes.
2 T's.
Same 2 T's.
John Ford, same 2 T's.
2 T's to make sure. And then on LinkedIn, you can do that as well. But Facebook is probably the most important one. I'm actually going to start a live streaming show
Nice.
where I hope you'll join me sometime.
Of course.
Next week.
Wow.
Called Fort Knox.
Oh, I love it.
We like the puns.
2 T's.
2 T's.
All right.
But the X.
Yeah.
I won't be knocking
Okay.
the show. But a little bit of a money edge to it, but not like market focused like CNBC. Not that only. We'll talk a little tech. We'll talk a little politics. We'll talk a lot of things. Real life.
I showed
Like
my
you.
hands. I showed my hands. So financially, I don't know if you're going to want me on for the finances. I showed you how little I do know. But I can carry a conversation. I wear my pants really well. What are my other skills? I've got some great skills. I'll send those along to you. So you.
Yeah.
And where's that going to be distributed? That's
Facebook Live,
and
and we'll have a podcast as well.
you're not choosing to do it on Periscope?
We'll do a little Periscope as well. The idea behind it is for there to be different editions. The challenge with Periscope is they haven't opened up the same kind of APIs on the back end so that you can use an encoder and kind of do all the tools, things that we want to roll back recorded interviews. I'm sure they'll get there, we'll figure it out, but this is how we're putting it out with the tools that we have.
Nice. Awesome. John, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
You are fantastic. All right, we're going to take a little break and mull over some of the things that I'm not doing in the tech world, and we'll be right back.